Hello and welcome, bookworms. Welcome to this week's episode of The Contented Narrative. We're looking at Tom's Midnight Garden by Philippa Pearce. Now, this was a nice little book that I just picked up a while back, and it is a children's book. 100%. It's sort of like a magical adventure book that is set around children, and honestly, so essentially what it is Tom's sent off to live with his aunt and uncle in the countryside, and because his brother's not very well, and they want him out of the way so they can look after the brother and not have to panic about Tom. So Tom gets sent off to this house in the countryside with his aunt and uncle, who are quite old, and he's sat there going, right, well, I'm not going to have any fun, I'm not going to be able to do anything, and so on and so forth. And then essentially, the reason why it's called the Midnight Garden is after midnight, and then the next time he hears a chime, it's like 13 chimes, and he's like, oh, that's new. So he wakes up and he goes out of the bed, and the house is completely different, and the gardens are completely different, and the people are completely different. And he sort of starts off believing that it's a dream, it's just like a dream that he's having, and then he slowly comes to realise that these people are real people, but are they ghosts of people that lived there in the past? Is he a ghost? He doesn't quite know how it works. And it kind of it ends kind of how, and like, spoiler alert, like, do you know what I mean? Like with the bigger books and things like that, I don't tend to like to spoil the books at all. But with children's books, I feel like a lot of them you kind of get in where they're going. So huge spoiler alert here is, it turns out that he's been sort of like time traveling. So he's with the clock chiming 13, he's been going back in time to when, to this child Hattie. And he realizes this sort of like at the end when he goes to apologize to the neighbor, and the neighbor goes, you called out a name last night, like what name was it? And he goes, it doesn't matter, she's like, don't you realize it's me? Like I thought I recognized. And it's such a sweet thing, because through the book you get the frustration of him being alone, being with, his aunt and uncle, and then through the day he's like, oh, right, okay, so I've got to do this, and he just wants to go back to that garden, he just wants to go back to the house, because he has friends there, he has the friend Hattie, they do ice skating and everything, and he starts to develop feelings as any sort of like 13-year-old would. But it is just such a nicely written story, and it's not sort of like overly complicated. It's not one that you kind of have to really think about. It is a kid's story. I wouldn't say baby, but I'd say probably when they're learning to read. It's something that you can read with your children. It's something that you can read to them. They can read with you, because it's so easily written. And it's nice sometimes to have those kind of books that you can just read, because who says that we can't read children's books past a certain age? Who says that we can't, read young adult when we're like in our 30s? Why not? Why can't we? And it's things like that I'm like, I sometimes like going back and reading the children's books and the young adults, because they're simpler, and they're not as complicated with plots and with love stories and with sex scenes and everything like that. So honestly, it was a book that I sort of like, I read, and I mean, obviously it's a really easy book to read. You can do this in like a day. Do you know what I mean? It's not a long one, and it's quite easily written. But the characters are really good, the storyline's really good, and it leaves you satisfied when you finish reading the book, because, sometimes when you've got like the mystery, you kind of sat there going, they don't explain it, and you're like, then what was the mystery? Like, was he a ghost? Were they a ghost? Like, what? But it doesn't, like, everything's wrapped up nicely, and it is genuinely, it's good to see his character development. I mean, there's not a lot, because again, children's book, and he's only young, but it's nice to see sort of like character development. It's nice to see it's nice to see the two different worlds as well. And honestly, I would definitely recommend giving this book a read, because I really enjoyed it, and it's such an easy read. And I think it's just, and again, if you've got kids, if you've got nieces, nephews, goddaughters, godsons, whatever, I think this would be a nice little thing to read with them. But yeah, so so have a go. Also, thank you so much to all the subscribers that I've had. It's still climbing. We're very, very close to passing 290, so just 2 more subscribers. That's all I need to get to 290. But thank you so much for all your continued support. It means the world to me that you guys are watching these videos, reading these books, expanding your your palette, as it were. So keep watching these videos. Remember to click subscribe if you're someone that's just stumbled on this one now. Go back and watch some of my previous videos as well. But thank you so much, and remember to always keep it contento.